Well, thank you for queuing it up so nicely about the front stage. So continuing with our theater metaphor, we have actors on the front. And now we're going to talk a little bit about how people do interact with that data. So after talking with a lot of partners across campus, we realized that there were essentially three types of actors. There are the end users, who are our individual learners, our faculty and staff who are not really technical. There are the technical users, the developers, the system administrators, and then there's this hybrid, the administrative users is how we're calling them. They are somewhat technical, but on the whole not. They do advising and they're business process owners, etc. So throwing out there for feedback, these aren't solutions that we're promising to deliver, but we're considering some different ways that these separate types of actors might interact with the interoperability tools that we've been discussing earlier. So first, for the technical users, we're considering some developer tools, a developer portal. For the administrative users, who are that blend, we're talking about an integration concierge. And for the end users, an improved login and profile experience. We'll begin with the end users with login and profile. Again, these are individual learners, faculty, and staff. So we'll consider a scenario with Mary. She is a first-year student and has an interest in geology. She attended a camp before college at UW-Madison and forgot her net ID that she was issued at this pre-college camp. So when she applied, she got a new net ID. Additionally, she used to go by her middle name, which was how another net ID was issued to her, but now she's corrected it. So she now has 3 net IDs. And her father contacts her to get her net ID so that he can log into her student center to pay her tuition bill. So the landscape for net IDs is very complex. We have identity record creation occurring in multiple systems, and they're opaque. The errors can result in multiple net IDs, and people like Mary can't self-assert identity. It's the HR department or the registrar that is entering her identity. Some departments know some things about her. So for example, at SOAR, she mentioned that she had an interest in geology. The geology department does not know that.
Can you introduce her?
Sorry, my name is Maria Damon. I'm a user experience researcher in the UX team. Thank you. All right, so the first idea that we have, this first interface that we're throwing out there, allowing users to easily create an account. Enable affiliates, so people either like Mary, who as an or not even an undergrad, as a high schooler decided to come to a pre-college camp, could create an account. And people, affiliates at UW Health, who aren't necessarily in the university proper, allow them to enter and use their own information. Secondly, establish a profile for each person. So part of create an account is creating a profile. Mary knows to go to MyUW and enter her profile information. It's a single place for her to view and modify and configure her preferences and privacy settings. In this, she might, under preferences, indicate that her father is an authorized payer. This would reduce complexity and create faster integrations with person data, which saves time and money. And as a piece of that profile, one was an interest piece. So she can indicate that she has an interest in geology so that the geology department actually understands that she has an interest. Finally, since her father was indicated as an authorized payer in her profile, her father receives a link that sends him to a page that allows him to log in with familiar credentials. So summarizing the login and profile, a simplified account recovery, easier to reach new populations such as affiliates or parents, cleaner data through self-entry. Mary knows her first name and she knows her middle name, so she's able to create a clean record first. And it's easier for departments and advisors to reach interested parties. So moving on to our second group of actors, the technical users. We have developers and system administrators. Let's imagine a scenario, keeping our geology theme. So a researcher in the geology department made a very interesting and exciting realization this past summer. While he was in Colorado, there were some unexpected features of rocks there that were similar to rocks in Wisconsin. And he has some eager graduate students who are going to help him with this research, and has contacted a developer in the geology department, and they are going to create an app to facilitate this research. So this researcher needs data from the walked rocks in Wisconsin. He needs the data that he collected over the summer in Colorado, and he needs to give access to specific groups of students. This might not be as straightforward as it seems, and we'll have a developer come and talk a bit about that.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Jared Kasanovic. I'm a developer with Enterprise Integrations. So I was going to talk about leading off of that example that Maria started off. From a developer point of view, what does it look like to integrate with another system or get data from the university? So right now, some of the pain points associated with that, you might, you have to start from somewhere. You have a list of requirements, and you need to get the data from somewhere. So that might start with an email or a meeting. Go down a long rabbit hole of who do I contact, where do I start, and maybe you do go down that rabbit hole and it ends up being a dead end. And you have to reverse back and go another way. Maybe when you do eventually get to the data, it's not abstracted, meaning maybe you're integrating directly with a system, so you have to learn specific system terminology. One side effect of that is a high maintenance overhead when you eventually do have that integration. Interacting directly with a system, going back to those point-to-point integrations, can have a lot of maintenance due to small changes in the system that could break a point-to-point integration downstream. Oftentimes there's a low amount of documentation with the data that you're getting at, so it's hard to know once you do have some sort of integration going, whether it's the correct data or if you need to vet the definition of the data with someone else before you start using it. So if you want to go to the next slide, one thing Tom was talking about a lot was the idea of a developer portal. These are a few developer portals from a few fellow universities across the country. And what this is, in a nutshell, is a self-service web interface to allow developers and technical users to integrate with data across the university. So one of the things here that stands out is it's really focused around the idea of APIs. So for maybe the non-technical people in the room, the definition of an API, one analogy I like to bring up is the idea of a restaurant. So think about you're in a restaurant, you're going to order some food, and then there's the menu and there's the kitchen. Well, you don't go directly to the kitchen to tell them how to cook a burger, to toast the bun, flip the patty, cut the tomato. You interact with a menu to just choose, I want a burger, and then the kitchen does the rest of the work, and it comes up, hopefully eventually serves your burger. So that's kind of the same thing with an API. You're not having to go back through the intricacies of a back-end system to try and manipulate and gather the data. There's a menu of operations that you can perform on the data, and you're just interacting with that. So if you want to go to the next slide, this video should autoplay. I was just going through some of the developer portals from the previous slide there. So this is just going through some of the workflows that might be pretty common. For example, this is going to get some documentation about a person API. So I'll just let that play in the background and talk about some of the benefits that this provides. So one thing when you see these examples is that you won't see in a developer portal terms like PeopleSoft or specific system names on the developer portal. It's all abstracted, so you're focused on integrating with data instead of integrating with a system. This has huge benefits because now that it's self-service, you don't need to worry about going down a rabbit hole of contacting people that might be managing the system that the data provides. You're just focused on providing or integrating with the data, and that data has already been abstracted and vetted into an interface, a menu of operations, going back to the analogy, that you can interact with as a developer to integrate that data into your application. It also has the benefit for people that want to provide APIs. So if you manage a system, or if you're a steward of data and you want to provide APIs for other people to consume, the developer portal allows you to publish your APIs as well as the documentation and maybe some of the policies and access processes around it so that other developers can come to the developer portal and interact with that data, without a direct, email or meeting communication every time someone wants to get data from your system. Let's see, so if we want to go to the next slide here. So one of the benefits, using a specific example here, was from our CIO, Lois Brooks. A few of our initiatives are for this idea of business enablement. One of the things that's going to come out of that is replacement of the HRS system. So when we talk about APIs, one of the benefits we have is, since we have an abstracted menu of operations we can perform on data, we're able to change the system that's providing that data in the backend with little or no notice on the developers that are integrating with that data. So an example here, if we have the current state of applications interacting directly with HRS, during a transition state, we can move to those apps instead interacting with an HR data API. So this gives the benefit of apps can interact with an API to do the same business processes they need to do, but now the data is abstracted so that while the new HR system is being brought up and stood up in the background, apps can move to integrate with an HR API, at the same time. And this is nice because once apps do integrate with an HR data API, and we have those common enterprise business object definitions of HR data, the new HR system can be brought on in the future state to be able to switch out from HRS, and those applications are still interacting with the same API to get the same data. Going back to the main benefit here is that the system is changing in the background, but there's little or no notice to the applications that are consuming the data. I think with that, I'm going to go to the next slide. I think handing back to Maria.
So imagining something like our peer institutions have done, creating some sort of developer tools, a developer portal, such that our geology researcher can access easily the students that he needs to give access to his apps. This helps them gathering the data. It also helps them fail faster and succeed sooner. So the developer tools will provide consistency for the APIs and standards, as Jared was mentioning, making the APIs useful, so not just having them, but also making them useful. It's a trust signal. There's confidence that this is the right API to use, and the ability to try integrations and fail fast and succeed sooner. So our last group is our admin users, the schools, colleges, departments, advising, business process owners who are somewhat technical, but possibly not. So continuing with our geology app, it was a big success. It's producing a lot of unexpected and wonderful things. And if you want, the initial researcher wants to contact the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences for some of their soil data and integrate that soil data, as well as expand access to the application for undergraduate students. So if he's lucky, he knows someone in middleware. Otherwise, he'll stumble around a bit. There are no definitions. You don't know how to know who is a geology student. Nothing is automated. The identity data integration is currently how someone goes about this, but those aren't intuitive terms to search. So after he does fumble around and find this, he submits an identity data request and fills out a Qualtrics form, if you can advance, please. And then in 1 to 2 business days, someone will contact you in 1 to 2 weeks for a consultation. So this is the current way that we have to go about this. And it's confusing and challenging and painful. So our researcher needs to know where to go and how to ask for help. So we can imagine something, so he eventually does find the Qualtrics form, and he works directly with CALS, the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, with a contact to get a feed of the soil data. So he does a direct integration, and they work out something where they occasionally make updates. So we have this nice, fragile, custom integration. So a solution that we would like to throw out for feedback, again. Some sort of integration concierge where you can access systems, access people, provide data, collect data, share data, add a new system. Our researcher is able to expand the services so that the undergrads can access it and collect the data from CALs that they have so kindly put into the system. Obviously, we aren't the only school to struggle with this. So looking at some colleagues, BYU has an info hub where you search a keyword for types of data that you're looking for or persons. And then if you'll go to the next slide. Oh, okay. So a concierge summary. We are supporting campus partners using predefined populations to enable campus to build quickly. There's also clearer communication. There's less confusion about what is a student. This is a tool that is automated and self-service and more easily discoverable than a Qualtrics form that, again, if you're lucky, you know someone in middleware or know the lingo. Otherwise, you are fumbling around for quite a while and unable to fail fast. So finally, we are giving guidance toward these best practices that we mentioned early on in the behind the scenes. So the high-level principles are sort of built in with accessibility and security.